Hello and welcome to another book club. It is awesome for us to have 6 people here. That is a new high for how many people are attending our book club. So this month we have read The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. And before I get into reading you that premise, let's take the opportunity to just introduce who we are. So I am Carlin, and I am an elementary school teacher, but I'm also a YouTuber. And welcome to mine and Mitch's YouTube channel. So thank you for tuning in. Danielle.
Hi, I am Danielle, and I also have a little blog on Instagram and Facebook called Modern Mind Body Mummy. But I enjoy reading. This book club has helped me to actually pick up physical books and not do audiobooks. And it's a much nicer way to spend my evening. So thanks for having me here.
Thank you for coming. Jessica?
I'm Jessica, and I am an admin assistant at Medicine Hat College. And this is my first meeting and book club meeting ever. So super pumped to be here.
Thank you for coming, Jessica. Ashley?
Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm also an elementary school teacher. I've been along for the whole book club ride, so it's great. And I always find something I like in each book we do. So thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming and being so supportive. Hello, Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle, and I am a retired teacher / literacy coach, and I have had the chance to work with both Carlin and Ashley over the years. I just love books. So when Ashley invited me to this book club a while ago, this is the first time I've come live. I have read all the books, and I have watched the YouTube videos, so I really enjoyed that. But I actually belong to 3 book clubs, so I love books. So I'm glad I could make it tonight.
Thank you so much for coming. It's exciting to have you here. And Mitch.
I'm Mitch. I'm Carlin's husband. I'm a YouTuber, and I like climbing. This is my first book club. I've read 2 out of the 4 books that we've done with the book club, but this is the first one where I'm attending, and I'm pretty excited for it.
Well, awesome. I'm glad that you read the book, Mitch, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say with this interesting book about men and women. So here is what we were reading about. In 18th century London, women whisper of a hidden apothecary shop and its mysterious owner, Nella, who sells well-disguised poisons to use against the oppressive men in their lives. Nella's dark world is no place for her newest patron, a precocious 12-year-old named Eliza Fanning. But their unexpected bond sparks a string of consequences that echoes through the centuries. 200 years later, aspiring historian Caroline Parswell is running from her own demons when she discovers a clue to London's long unsolved apothecary murders. Caroline's upended present soon collides with an explosive history, binding her fate to Nella's and Eliza's in a stunning twist that transcends the barrier of time. All right, so let's jump into this. Question 1. What did you think about Nella's choice to start offering poison to women to kill the men who have wronged them?
Well, I think it stemmed out of the betrayal that she had. So probably stemmed from anger and wanting revenge, and then I guess just snowballed into let's help everybody with their revenge kind of thing. So that's kind of what I thought.
And I think she thought or hoped that it would bring her healing. I understood that she felt better for just a little bit when her, whatever he was, lover, died. She maybe felt better for just a second. And so then she thought, oh, if I do this again or help other women, it might make me feel better. But then obviously we see that that didn't actually happen. And like you, I agree, it kind of snowballed from there.
So when, like, I looked at the question and it's like, what did you think about Nella's choice to kill the men? And I'm like, what circumstances is it ever okay to sympathize with a murderer? And so I wanted to think that it was okay what she was doing. That's what I felt through the book. But obviously, Nella experienced a traumatic event and given her knowledge, she easily slipped into the darkest resolution. It's extreme, but I was thinking about how a decision made in anger, and that's what she did. It was a decision made in anger, and now she's a murderer. Where did I go? I think about the historical context and how women were considered property and how they were how mistreated they could be. And so when Eliza came in at 12 years old and she's clearly been mistreated by her employer, and knowing that she's assaulted, I tried to put myself into that position. I would be tempted to flip to that dark side, because what other solution is there? But then I also come back to, she's a murderer, and she's not just a one-time murderer, she's a mass murderer. And how can I like her and sympathize with her when she is killing all these people? So that's where my mind went with that question.
I don't think I sympathized with her. I think I just acknowledged her as somebody who lived in a state where women were oppressed. And like we even saw at the end of the book when they were standing on the bridge, and the cops were, the tone and the context which they spoke to the women, that I didn't sympathize with her as in like, oh, I feel bad for, you know, what she's done and stuff like that. But I think at the time it's one of those, without choices, where do you go?
Right.
You know, so I yeah, it was kind of a catch-22 for me more than anything.
I do like that, your point of like women being oppressed, and if they were to report sexual assault, there probably would be no repercussions for the person right. who's assaulting. So sometimes when you're stuck, you do things that you never would have imagined yourself doing so that you can feel safe. So I like that.
Yeah, because I think even now today we still have women who are doing this, and I'm not saying multiple times, but they're still doing this because there is no more choice.
Absolutely. I mean, we heard about a case nearby where a woman murdered her husband. It's against the law, and women don't have that kind of, I mean, we're not oppressed like the 1700s.
Yeah.
And when it's like, I feel like this, what's the word I'm looking for? But when you're talking self-defense, I think that can be a bit of a gray area in like his side and her side, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. And at what point is it truly self-defense, and at what point isn't it? That it's a iffy thing as well. But I agree, she's still a murderer. She's a serial killer, really, is what she is.
And it's so funny because when you put it into like actual context, there's so few women serial killers. They're not the prevalent, they're not a statistic typically when they talk serial killers. So it's actually kind of fascinating that they would choose a strong female to become that.
What did you think, Mitch?
Well, I didn't really think much about it, like whether or not she was killing men or women, because like in lots of fictional assassins, like they draw that line at no women and children. So I was just like, okay, she kills men. And that was...
That's awesome.
Yeah. There is no like underlying reason why or anything. I just figured she didn't want to kill women.
Did you have anything you would like to add, Michelle?
Yeah, I agree with the girls and Mitch here, but I think that I think this whole book is about powerless, how we act when we're powerless. The girls, even the wife, Caroline, she was basically powerless because she got herself into a job she didn't like and gave up her own career. And so I think that's setting the stage right away, that's the only way that Nella could get her power, was she had control over those drugs.
Yeah. With a lot of power too.
Yeah. And secrets. I think secrets is a big theme in this book too. And she was able to keep that a secret, hiding her secrets.
I also like with the fact that she was keeping that and like keeping records of everybody, it gave those women the history, right? A chance to be remembered, whereas anybody who wasn't a lord or like a noble person, they're not in any history books. So at least, she had the pride in that.
Yeah.
Did anyone have anything else they wanted to add to this question? Okay, question 2. Were you familiar with mudlarking prior to reading this novel? And would you ever try it? You knew what it was, Mitch?
No, I would try it. I was taking note for the first half of the question.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had never heard of it.
If I lived in a coastal tourist town, it would be a pretty lucrative business to have tourists, if it's a place like where stuff from history, like ships and stuff were landing, right? You could make pretty good money off a tourist coming and spend an hour picking treasure out of the river or whatever.
At the beginning, I had no idea. I'm like, okay, this woman is going mudlarking. How can this possibly connect to Nella's story? And I found it interesting how the littlest details at the beginning of the book were major parts of the story, like looking for the inconsistencies where this minor character says this one little bit, and that is what changes the whole direction in the story. I thought that was really cool. And yeah, I would definitely try it out. It was neat how this one little bottle that she finds out mudlarking sets the whole story.
And totally changes your life.
Yep.
It almost got her arrested.
Yeah.
I actually thought when they first mentioned it, I went straight to suspicion. I was like, what does he want? What is this, like a made up word? Is he wanting to coax her to go do something down by the bay? Like, I actually went into the suspicious, like, who is this guy and what does he want from her? And I almost got a little bit apprehensive in a bit. Like, I was like, is she going to do something that's gonna get her in peril or in trouble? And then I realized he was just a nice guy who wants to take her mudlarking once I realized what it was. And I would totally do it. I'd be in there like a dirty shirt.
I was worried the whole time that there was something in the bottle and she was going to poison herself or the whole hotel. Who knew?
Well, go ahead.
I thought similar when her husband got sick.
Yeah, that's what I
thought was he found the bottle and did something and it got him sick.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say was the husband finding that bottle and taking that, which made him sick.
Yeah.
Had you heard of mudlarking, Ashley?
No. But
and would you do
fun?
Next time we're hanging out, we can go mudlarking.
Yeah.
Go mudlarking the creek.
And Michelle, had you heard of it before?
Nope. It was interesting. I don't think I would go mudlarking, but maybe on a sandy beach. I don't know. The idea of a dirty river and stuff doesn't really appeal to me, but
Well, it kind of reminded me of when we were in Newfoundland and we were walking along that beach and we found the sand dollars. And like, it was just some guy was there and he's like, "Oh, are you guys finding sand dollars?" And we don't even know what those are. And he showed us, and like, it's a weird piece of sand that some sea animal makes, but it puts like a flower shape on the sand and hardens it. And like, we've got some up in our bathroom that we brought back from Newfoundland. And like, that's what I was kind of picturing while they were describing the mudlarking.
Did we have anything else? Oh,
I was just going to say, I feel like there would have to be like lots of treasures to find for me to stay interested. Like I would be happy to be down by the river and outside and exploring. But if I didn't find something for like half an hour, I feel like I'd lose attention.
agreed. All right, question 3. The story features 2 timelines. One follows Nella and Eliza in 18th century London, while the other follows Caroline in present-day London. Do you like the dual timeline format? How did it help slowly reveal the mystery?
I think at the start, it was a bit confusing for me until I kind of found the parallel between them. But then it was really interesting to see how, even though their, timeline is so far apart, there were so many similarities between them. And it was really interesting when both parts were kind of a murder investigation. They're both, being charged with murder, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Who's going to get caught first? Or, so I would say I started off with it being unsure about it, and then in the end I really liked how the similarities came together and the story worked.
I really liked the dual timeline, and I'm kind of the opposite of you, Ashley. I think I liked it more in the beginning, and then there were like when the husband, Carol, what's her name? Was his name? I'm terrible.
James.
Yeah, when he got poisoned, I was just like kind of found myself like rolling my eyes. I was like, oh, come on. This is just getting ridiculous. And I can't really say like why I felt that way, but I liked it all until that part. And then I kind of thought, this is just too, I don't know, too hokey. But I did enjoy the story overall, so it wasn't enough to ruin it. But that was probably my least favorite part of the book.
Mitch had read the book before I did, and at the beginning I was like, she's gonna kill James, she's gonna kill him, isn't he? And he was just like, I love knowing what's happening when you don't. But I actually love the dual format and how the stories connected to each other. And I think I said this to Ashley earlier today, and I think this is my favorite book club book that I've read before. I loved how pivotal the blue jar was, and I thought it was really well planned out by the author. I loved knowing more than Caroline did, and seeing how she discovered the information, learning about the story of Nella and Eliza, but never actually knowing Nella. So I loved knowing more than Caroline. And so, but it also made me really anxious to try and predict the ending. Like, what is going to happen? I have no idea. And I was so wrong. As I was finishing the book, I was texting Mitch, and I was just like, oh my goodness, she's going to kill herself. Oh my goodness. And he's like, ha, ha, ha. I was wrong. But
I like the dual timeline. I've read a couple of books already that have had the dual timeline. I like it because it puts things just into a slightly different perspective. Because if you think about it, Caroline lives in modern day with all these modern technologies, like internet and phone and the hotel and all this access. Like, you'd never hear of a woman traveling across the globe because she wanted to stuff it to her ex-husband or her husband, right? So it's kind of neat to watch the two. Whereas, when somebody's in in the 1700s, that isn't accessible. So it's kind of neat to watch the two and how they both dealt with very similar situations, but in very different times. is what I really liked.
I agree with that. And I agree with a lot of what Carlin said. And I liked the map, the addition of the maps. And so you hear in the two different times, you hear them talking about different areas of the city, and you can like almost imagine that they're in the exact same spot. And like when she goes to explore the hidden door and finds out that it was the apothecary, and you're just imagining what it looks like here and there, and the different streets. And I like that she included the map in it, so it helped me visualize the past and the present. So I thought the addition of the maps to the two time frames was a cool addition as well, adding to what Jessica said.
Did you like the dual timeline, Michelle?
Yeah, very much so. But I'm the same as Jessica. I think a lot of the books now that we're reading have the dual timeline. I think it's kind of very popular right now. So it seems to be the way it goes now. So, and you're always like the intertwining. I liked the way the cops, were in one story and then they were in the next story. But it does help you kind of get towards the end, I guess, right? What's going to happen makes you think of that, because I was pretty sure that she was going to find it, right? Like it led up pretty easily that was going to be hit. The hidden door was going to be still there for sure.
And I think it gave two climaxes.
Yeah. In
the sense that, Nella and Eliza climaxed with their story, and then it also climaxed with Caroline's story. So it was almost like, this is a 2-for-1 deal. Like you think you got the BOGO kind of thing, right? You're high-fiving yourself because you're like, look at this is awesome, because there's two of them, right?
And like the cliffhangers, like because of that, like you would be like, oh, I'm finally going to find out what's happening with Nella. And then it would be the next chapter and we'd be to Caroline. And so then you'd have to wait, and then I'd want to read more because I'm like, I want to get back to Nella and see what happened there. So that's cool.
And what about you, Mitch? Did you like the dual timeline?
I did. And at the start, like I was more engaged with the like Nella and Eliza's story. But then once James showed up in London, like my interest shifted to Caroline and James's interactions more so. And like I liked how I kept trying to figure out, like I was like, is the bottle she found the one that Eliza had given to Mrs. Clarence earlier? And then that's the one that was missing. Then you find out that she got that bottle back. And then like with the newspaper clippings and all that stuff, like I was like how it all intertwined in the end. Yeah, I really like that. And that's my first book that I can think of that I've read that has the two timelines. So
did anybody have anything else they wanted to say about the dual timelines? All right, moving on to question 4. Caroline planned a big trip to London to celebrate her 10th anniversary, but she finds out her husband had an affair right before the trip. So she leaves behind home to take the trip herself. What would you have done if you were Caroline?
I would like to think that I would go on the trip, but in that situation, I don't think I'd be mentally able to.
Are you kidding me? I'm going on the trip, Mitch. You can stay home. I even wrote that down. I said, I'd do what Caroline did. Sorry to cut you off, Mitch, but if you had the affair, I'm going on the trip separately, and you better not show up at my hotel room.
It's hard to put yourself in the situation of somebody who's been cheated on after 10 years of marriage too. Like that's kind of a circumstance you don't really know how you'd react to unless you're in it.
I also wrote that down too. I put, who really knows until they're in that situation?
Yeah.
I'd done left him. I'd have been out. I've been cheated on. And I could tell you the first thing I did was like, besides flip him the bird, I was out. I was like, I'm out. I need to go and just collect. and just not, and be in a place where nobody knew me, and there was security in being anonymous, and you could actually be who you, to clear your head and stuff like that. So, and I mean, and London is a huge city, so you would have that, right? Like, I liked London enough, but you would have that, right? So she could actually do what she wants, when she wants, where she wants.
I think I'd be a puddle. So I don't know what I'd be. I don't know. I'd fly to London and lay in the hotel bed and cry for a while. I don't know.
Are the tickets refundable?
Yeah.
Buy insurance.
Yeah. I'm like Mitch. I like to think I would go. I don't know if I would, but why not? If you're a fight and flight type of person, right? You're probably going to run away for a little while. You might get there and go, what the heck did I do? But
Ashley, would you stay? Would you go?
Well, I'd like to think I would go and just eat my way through it, but like Mitch said, you never really know until you're in it. But it's a romantic thought to go, you know, go off on your own. Who needs the man? It's like the end of the Disney movie where there isn't a man, you just help yourself. So, you know, I'd like to think I would, but you never know, right?
All right, question 5. Nella and Eliza develop an unlikely friendship. Why did the two of them have such a strong bond?
I think another theme in the book was also motherhood, because both of our characters were longing for that motherhood, and Nella particularly was mourning like her loss, right? So I think Eliza was almost like a step in for a child, somebody she could take care of and put her wisdom that she had learned from her mother onto her, and just kind of like another leaf in her tree, her family tree. So I think even though initially she kind of pushed her away, I think she began to find someone to love, right? 'Cause she was by herself. So to have, you know, and the girl obviously needed companionship too. So it was kind of like a little perfect fit for those two, I think.
Yeah, I had written that Nella saw both herself and her daughter in Eliza, and just like Ashley had said, like when she was young, with her mother teaching her all the different tinctures and stuff, and then Eliza showing up and being the inquisitive young girl, and then like Ashley said, falling in love with her.
I had put down that I think people connect when they have a shared trauma. And so definitely having lost that child comes into it, and wanting a child. But then they both understood vengeance. And I think that they were lonely, and they saw that in each other. And so I agree with what you said, Ashley and Mitch. And I just think it's a complex relationship.
And that's what I was going to sort of say, is like Nella kept kicking her out. Like, you can't be here. This is no place for a girl. And then obviously things happened, but I think she wanted to mentor her and have her in her life. So she kind of, was trying to protect her through all the events that happened, but I think she was also sort of looking for excuses to have her come back to the apothecary, because this isn't the place for a kid, but it's nice to have somebody around at the same time. So it was a complex relationship because of all of the things you've already said.
And they were like-minded, even though one, Eliza was more dark magic, so to speak, I guess. And at that time, they would have been considered witches, both of them, whether it's herbal or magic. So I think she noticed that in her too. In fact, she didn't want that for Eliza, right? She wanted her to stay away from that because she would have been hung, right? If she would have been found out.
Any other thoughts on their friendship, their bond? All right, moving on to question 6. While Nella doesn't flinch to make poisons that will be delivered to men, she initially declines making one that is targeted for a woman. Why do you think Nella drew the line at making poisons that would kill women?
I think you guys kind of answered that question when you answered number 1, with like women traditionally had been sought as like less than men and whatnot, and were never equals. So I think it was like you guys had said, like almost like a vengeance kind of thing on.
Maybe I'm wrong. I thought that Nella didn't view herself as a bad person. I thought that she viewed herself as helping women who had terrible experiences with men. And she didn't want to view herself that would just kill anyone until she was forced into it.
I think oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead, Jessica.
I think you just said something that's really striking is she was forced into it. Like that woman come in and played her. You know, she had been very cautious. She had picked every individual target, whatever you want to put it as, very selectively, and it was all done in very secrecy. And then the final one was she was without choice anymore, right? The woman was threatening to expose her, which came out in the end anyway. But I think she saw herself as a service for women who, again, it was that oppression thing. Like she didn't take necessarily everyone. So I think there's something to be said for that. And I think that it goes back to the friendship too that we were talking about, is the bond between women and how we have a tendency to help each other, try to lift each other up, right? Poor Mitch is like, well, what about me? You know, but
don't mess with women.
Yeah.
Lost what I was going to say.
Sorry about that.
No, I was going to say something after what you said. Anyway, I think part of what I was going to say before is I do think that Nella is torn, because I do think that she feels like she's lifting other women up and helping where she can. But she also makes comments about the sickness in her body is coming on because of all of the death she has created. So I think that she's torn. Like she's doing a service, but it's not a pleasant service to have to do, but it's one that's necessary, sort of, is how I saw her. So I don't know that she thinks she's a good person or a bad person, but she's doing a necessary service and there's nothing to be done for that. I remember what else I was going to say, because in the end, when she was forced into then providing a poison that was for a woman, she seemed more concerned, and maybe I'm wrong, but she seemed more concerned about all the women who were going to be outed if she was caught. Like she didn't seem so worried about, well, I think she thought she was going to be dying soon anyways or something. She wasn't so worried about herself. She just really wanted to protect all the other women. And that's part of that connection to women thing, is how I saw it as well.
I think she had a lot of guilt too, because she talked a lot about her mom would never do that. My mom would do that. So maybe she kind of made that deal with herself that if I only let it happen with men, it's not quite as bad. You know, because she talked about herself being a bad person, and my mom's books would never say this. And my mom was only.
She uses those things to try and convince herself that this is not bad. but she does, I agree, carries that guilt.
True.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of like you could label it possibly as like a feminist novel, right? Like, so it's that feminist push that we're protecting each other. It's, you know, not the bro code, it's the girl code. So yeah, I do think that Lady Clarence did try to manipulate her, and maybe in her more weakened state, she kind of fell for it a bit there and got herself caught in that trap. But I think that's one thing that I liked about her character. It was that she was true to the reason why she was doing this was to help women, and she did turn her down at the start and tried her best to get rid of her, but then like was said that she didn't want those women to have to live with the public knowing who did what to everybody. So she would rather go down, you know, and die with those secrets than them be exposed. So I thought that was valiant in her.
But then I thought it was interesting, like she had so much trust on this hidden room that she's not going to take the book with her and hide the book. She didn't destroy the evidence. She was leaving it all behind. So then, did she actually care as much about people getting caught? I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that she would leave that behind.
I thought that too. I thought that was strange.
But if she took and destroyed the book, all those memories of those women would be gone. So if she left it there, at least if it ended up in a police box in a storage room somewhere, it's still there. It's still going to be a part of history, right? Those stories aren't going to just disappear. Whereas if she destroys the book, they're gone forever with her.
And that's the reason she created it to begin with.
Yeah.
I thought, this is not part of the questions or anything, but I thought, how reckless are you to go back to the apothecary shop 24 hours after the police have been searching for you? That's reckless.
And she really wanted to make sure that Eliza was documented in history. Her purpose was, this girl threw herself off a bridge and died for me. She needs to be documented as part of history, because otherwise she's going to be completely forgotten as well. So I don't necessarily think I would do that, but I wouldn't do any of the things in this book. But just to make that clear.
Good to know, Danielle.
But I can see, like, that's where Nella's like viewpoint and her values took her to keep this clear register for a really good reason that Mitch has pointed out. So that's why she went back.
Well, that's a good segue into question 7, which is, what did you think of Eliza's storyline?
I found it was kind of bittersweet, because like she gave Nella everything like she really wanted, like her missing daughter and a companion and stuff, but also it was Eliza who ultimately brought her demise by giving the wrong bottle away, right? So it's both sides of the coin.
But at the same time, thank goodness for that demise. She was a serial killer. It needed to stop one way or another. She's a murderer.
No, because like if you use a kitchen knife to stab somebody, is the person who made the knife the murderer, or is it the person who used the knife the murderer?
Good question.
Right? Like she supplied the poisons, but ultimately it's that person who wants to poison somebody who's the murderer. Right? Not saying Nella is innocent in any way, but like she didn't actually murder people.
She did. She murdered Frederick at the very beginning, which is what started it all. So she's a single murderer by your definition.
I think that's an interesting point. Like, I could go pick up rat poison from a store, like, no problem, and slowly give it to my husband.
Dean, I hope you're not listening right now.
I already clearly said I would never do anything to send this book. But if I did, then would the store be the killer? Or, like, could the store be liable? That's interesting. The store wouldn't have knowledge of what I was doing, and Nella did.
But a poison is made for one purpose.
Right. It is true.
I had so going back to Eliza's storyline, I had wrote that Eliza broke my heart. She is the only character that made me cry in this book. I had real tears when she jumped off of the bridge. At 12 years old, she's 10 years old, sold into servitude. She's abused, becomes a killer, and she feels okay about being a killer. And she blindly trusts magic will save her and her friend at the end of the book and jumps off of a bridge. To me, her story was incredibly sad. And I wonder, like, knowing how it ends and that she lives, I wonder how her life actually would have been had this not been a fiction book kind of thing. I don't foresee her getting happily married and living happily ever after with the kind of trauma that she experienced. So I found her storyline right up to the very end of the book devastating.
Okay. I was saying I do agree with Carly. I did feel really bad for her, but I also thought she was very brave, like a very brave young girl character. So I think that she did, like Mitch say, become a bit of a liability for Nella, but I think that what Nella got out of the friendship and the love that they had was kind of more important to her than her getting found out. And I mean, she was ready to go off the bridge herself, so Nella would be a little, like, it didn't show quite enough emotion for me from Nella after she jumped off the bridge. Like, I thought she would be a little more heartbroken about it, but it was good to know that she lived and everything like that. But yeah, I don't think I had quite the same reaction as you, Carly. It wasn't quite as deep into her as that. I just thought she was so brave, and that in that instance her trauma kind of helped her get through the whole aspect of the murder thing, like she kind of did.
I'm going back to what Jessica said earlier about comparing present day to the 1700s. So when we were talking just there, it made me think we are more quick, it seems, to demonize Nella because she was an adult and she murdered Frederick and all of those things. But it was the 1700s. How old do you think she actually was when all of that happened? Like, to our standards, she could have still been like a teenager, old enough to get pregnant, obviously, but she probably wasn't very old. So why do we feel empathy for Eliza that we don't feel for Nella purely because of her age? And if we compare that to now, like right away, I think, oh, well, if she's, has a lover and is getting pregnant and is running a store, she's probably 30. Like, that's sort of what goes into my head. But Nella probably was not that old. So that conversation there just got me thinking about different perspectives. And I don't exactly know what I think about it or feel about it, I should say, but I thought that was interesting. Thought that came across my head.
I think you definitely mentioned something, because I was thinking, I'm like, she's 12 years old, but she's 12 years old on her own. Like, I have a 9-year-old. That's 3 years. Like, no way. At 10, they took her. Just no. And so you have to put that in perspective too. Here is this 12-year-old looking for guidance, looking for somebody who's going to, we talked about Nella substituting a bit, but what about Eliza substituting? Because she didn't have a mother anymore. She had her lady or mistress of the house, but she didn't have that mother figure either. So there's a bit of a spin on that too, right? So she was looking for somebody for comfort and to guide her and to help her, right?
It's complex. It gets me thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody have anything they wanted to add about Eliza's story? Okay, moving on to question 8. Caroline sidelined her own career plans when she got swept up in marriage and trying for a baby. But after her husband cheats, she begins to see that she sidelined her own goals for a more comfortable life. How did coming to London and investigating the apothecary help give her direction?
I think it gave her control, because she didn't like the job she was in. She was like, the career path she'd chosen, she was doing everything for her marriage and to have a kid, and not having a kid, there is a loss of control. So I think it gave her a bit of control to get there.
Yeah, I also think maybe, sorry.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
a bit of a distraction too. I know just personally, like, we had a lot of trouble with fertility as well, and I know you can get so deep into it when you're trying, and it can be overwhelming, and that's all that's on your mind. So I think, not that she would have wanted the betrayal, but to go and just have a totally new kind of obsession to get into and forget about that other, worry and anxiety about that, was just another little rabbit hole, like they kind of called it, for her to dive into and totally be distracted and forget about James and forget about, the baby and everything. Even though she thought she could be pregnant, she totally wasn't thinking about it. She was just kind of almost obsessed with this apothecary.
I think that her storyline, Caroline's storyline, is one that many people can connect to. I think that a lot of people make choices and compromises, and often those choices are affected by the people around them, just like James influenced her choices, and it ended up she was giving up her dreams. And I think that without a strong sense of identity and direction, happiness in her relationship was doomed to fail. And her storyline reminded me of an education psychology class that I took in university, where we were studying Erickson, the psychologist Erickson, and he had said that in order for a relationship to be successful, you needed to have identity before intimacy. And she definitely had intimacy before she established her identity. And so the happiness in her relationship would be doomed from the beginning until she was able to develop that strong sense of identity. And you could even see it in the end, after the fact, James was not willing to help her achieve her dreams and go for her dreams. What else had I put? I put, when we please others and put their wishes before our own, our personal satisfaction is unattainable. And then problems with resentment in the relationship appear.
I kind of felt like James in Caroline's story was like the Lady Clarence in Nella's story. Like they were both kind of manipulators. And even when we find out that he kind of did the eucalyptus as like a suicide attempt to get her attention, I was just kind of like, ew, like I didn't like him. It's just kind of a liar and a bit of a manipulator. So I think we had to have both those characters in both the stories where it challenged the female, whereas Nella kind of had to give in and give the poison, but Caroline stood up for herself and just moved on without the manipulator. So
and I like kind of was like iffy on, I was like, oh well, you know, Caroline and James could maybe work it out and get back together, until the whole eucalyptus incident, and I was like, that's just over the top, no way.
Well, and that answers question 9, that do you think their marriage is done for good?
Well, just because I think that she shouldn't go back to him doesn't necessarily mean that the marriage is done, but that was ridiculous of him. And I know it happens, like manipulators, abusers, like that's how they react in relationships. So I'm not saying that it's far-fetched that it could happen.
No, I think this happens a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, she finally remembered who she was. And I mean, Carolyn and Mitch, I mean, you're on a self-care journey. I mean, you know how hard it is to look after yourself first. And we all know that. We all know we have to look after ourselves first, but I'm a retired teacher who's working this week, and I can't even get to the yoga mat because I'm friggin' working this week. Like, how bad is that?
That's not bad.
No, but I mean, when I have myself to look after as a retired person, I have no problem getting to the yoga mat, right? But now that I'm back to work and oh my goodness, I got to get up early again. And, you know, it's kind of like, it's hard. It's hard to look after yourself first. And I think whether you're on this kind of journey like she was, a marriage journey or a self-care journey, you have to, it's hard to put yourself first because you feel selfish. When we know we have to look after others, we have to put ourselves first.
And I think Caroline felt so safe, like in her marriage, and safe in her decisions, and taking any kind of risk at that point was really scary. So her trip to London, the trip in itself was a bit of a risk, but she tried mudlarking. She went with this strange man down by the river and found something cool. And then she almost got arrested, and she found the hidden door and all of those things. And she took risks, and it turned out okay. So I think like that built her confidence to remove herself from the safe situation. Because without those experiences, I don't know that she would have had the confidence to leave the same as if she had just found out about the infidelity.
Mitch, did you want to add anything about their marriage?
Well, I had just put that like the mystery and the excitement of like seeking the unknown with the apothecary and stuff. It gave her feelings and emotions that she didn't even know she was missing in like her life she was living with James. And then I just put that like she spent years trying to make her life perfect with James instead of trying to make her perfect life.
Well, and like Michelle said, like we have learned these past 2 years how important it is to put yourself first. Our marriage is way healthier since we did start working on ourselves and putting our needs before. We can't help others if we can't help ourselves.
But I also think that that going to London was necessary for her to do some that self-reflection that says, okay, hang on a sec, like the manipulation is not okay. What has he done in the past as well? And, you know, those who manipulate have a tendency to not address that that's what they're even doing. And it is a form of, you know, abuse and stuff like that. So you give that space and all of a sudden you get a clear head, right? It's like getting out of the storm and actually being able to see 360 and know what you're dealing with. And if you can all get into some kind of mental health to help with that, that's great. But if you're only one, and he obviously was not going to partake, because look how the drastic measures he took to make sure that she didn't leave, then, you know, as a strong individual, I would have looked at him and been like, yeah, and we're done. And she finally figured out who she was by the fact that he wasn't there to keep her from discovering who she was.
Absolutely. All right, are we ready? Is it okay if we jump to question 10? We kind of lumped 8 and 9 together. All right, sounds good. Okay, question 10. Were you surprised when it turned out Eliza lived? Do you think the author was trying to say magic was involved, or was it pure luck that she survived? I'm going to jump in right here and say I was shocked. This was when I was busy texting Mitch and I was like, oh, she died, the kid died. And he just sent me back laugh emojis. And I was really happy she lived. The last few books that we've read have been quite dark, or at least kind of dark, I guess. One of them was super dark, but I liked that there was a happily ever after. In a way, I mean, murderers happily ever after. I would have been okay with it if Nella had died, but I'm really happy. Well, because she had done so much killing, whereas Eliza only killed one person who had sexually assaulted her, and I was okay with that murder for whatever reason. I mean, it's murder, but I was okay with it. But I was shocked.
I had read the questions before reading the book, so it's kind of a spoiler in the question itself, right? So I wasn't surprised to know she was alive, but the method in which she stayed alive by like drinking that serum she had made, and it basically gave her hyperthermia, so that when she was underwater she stayed warm, right? Like it in theory could work. I don't think it would, but it's, you know, it's, I wasn't surprised, I guess.
It was magic.
The question. Yeah. But I mean, like, if you think about it, like, you drink a shot of Zambuca when you're cold, it warms you up from the inside, right? Like, you feel that warmth inside. So whether or not it actually gives you, like, your body core temperature enough to keep you alive in some thermal temperatures, I don't know, but I mean, it worked for her, so.
And
I
most
think
forms of magic. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say most forms of magic are, in my mind, explained by things similar to what you're saying, Mitch. So is the author saying that magic is real? I don't know, but Eliza sure believes it.
Or is magic just in your mind? She had such a strong belief in magic that was that belief strong enough to keep her alive.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I guess, is that any different than naturopaths? You know, like,
Yeah.
like Nella, she believed, well, I mean, her poisons obviously killed people, but like a lot of people that believe in essential oils or, you know.
Placebo effect. It
Yeah,
happens
that's it.
with
Exactly.
medications too, right?
Mhm.
People believe enough, and we don't know the details of how Eliza survived,
No.
right? So there could have been some fluke thing that she landed on, or it could have been that, oh, I have this magic, so I'm going to survive, so it gave her the ambition to fight harder in the river. Like, we don't know any of that. We just know that she survived.
But Nella kind of scoffed at magic, you know, which kind of surprised me a little bit. You know, I would have thought she would have been a little bit more, you know, interested in it, so to speak.
Well, I mean, I think if you look back, people have jumped off any kind of height and survived. I mean, there's that one gentleman who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, and he was actually in Medicine Hat a few years ago, who gave a wonderful presentation, right? So can it happen? Yeah. Do I think it involved magic? No, I think it was more of a pure luck. And she was already prepared. So, I mean, there's things you can do. Now, whether or not in the 1700s they knew how to prepare for it, I don't know. But, you know, if you do your things right and you get out of the water and stuff like that, should she have been hurt? Probably. But she seems like she walked out of it like herself. Like, it doesn't go into detail how she got out of the river.
And maybe
or
she
what
was
she
hurt.
did after the river, right? Like, it just jumped to her life as a married with kids, right? So there was that gap that didn't explain what the circumstances were at the end of the river, how she got out. And that would have been more interesting.
Mitch wouldn't talk to me about the book for book club. So, Mitch, were you surprised that Eliza lived?
Well, no, I answered that already.
Oh, I missed it. Sorry.
Because I had read the questions beforehand, so I knew she
Oh,
was.
yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, and that triggered in me. I found the questions and I put them up on the page, and I totally forgot about it, and I refused to look back at the questions because I knew it would spoil it for me. Because when I was finding the questions, it says, "Do not read; these will spoil it for you."
Which made me read it.
Ashley, what about you?
Yeah, I did find it relieving that she lived. On the topic of magic, I did find it strange when I first started reading that they had the magic spelled with a K. I hadn't seen that before. So I kind of looked it up, and it said that it was magic that is generated through religion or witchery. So the K is added to symbolize that it's not like pretend stage magic, that it's considered real magic. So I was like, that was like a smart twist on the author's part to add that K in there, you know, I do think talking about the author, like, she obviously did a lot of research for timelines and historical events and, you know, things like that into the book. And for her first novel, I thought it was, you know, pretty interesting. And that was probably my favorite twist of it, was the magic with the K, because it kept, every time I saw it, I was like, oh, yeah, you know, you would think about the witchery and the, that it was a word that has been used throughout history to be linked to that. So kind of, even when it talks about that it's real, it's not the stage magic. I don't know if I could go as far to think that it was the potion that saved her, or was it a combination, or like Michelle said, was it just that hope and belief of which could be very strong for a young 12-year-old girl, that it is like a fairy tale ending, right? I'm gonna jump off and this potion is gonna save me and everything's gonna be fine. But like Michelle said, I did find it weird that Nella didn't take the potion too, because she was offered the same potion by Eliza, and she turned it down, right? So, but yeah, I was relieved that she survived.
That got me
I think-
thinking of modern times again. Like, if you had a pharmacist and a naturopath in the same room, are they going to believe the same things? And not that I'm saying magic and naturopaths are the same thing. I'm just saying they're two different, they both provide similar service, but they're two very different perspectives on things. So would they agree? So like, we're assuming that just because, you know, that apothecary is like quite similar to a pharmacy. So just because she's using herbs for this purpose, we assume that she should believe in them for use in another purpose. And that's not necessarily the case. Did my analogy make sense? I hope so. It did in my head.
It did. It did. Did you have something you wanted to add, Mitch?
Well, just from what Ashley's saying about Nella like declining to take that potion, like I think her end game was always her death, and she wasn't gonna do anything to take that away from herself. And then ultimately she didn't take her life anyways, but it like worked out for her. But yeah, I think that's why she refused the potion, was that was her plan, was to jump off the bridge, and just that was it.
What do you think Nella was sick with? Did it say?
Guilt.
Yeah. Yes.
And arthritis.
I thought a couple different things. I thought maybe cancer, lung cancer, because of the prolonged onset of the symptoms.
And then she said like it had spread from here to there or whatever. Yeah.
Right. But I also thought, as she's coughing up blood, is it tuberculosis? But that didn't, I don't know if that made sense. I don't know the timeline of tuberculosis. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of different things crossed my mind too. I was just curious if anybody else had any thoughts, because Nella probably would have gotten very different treatment if she was born 200, 300 years later, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it was interesting too that she said she had tried to treat her own ailments, but it didn't work.
It also makes me think that like maybe another reason she didn't take the potion was that she was so accustomed now to making potions for like dubious reasons that maybe she no longer believed in the other side of the potions, that they could do the good like her mom used to do. You know, maybe she didn't believe that she had that side of her anymore. Like she had the guilt that she wasn't like her mom, right? So
She maybe didn't feel she deserved the good side of it.
right.
Did anybody have anything they wanted to add to the ending of, or how Eliza lived? Or are we ready for the final question? All right, question 11. Oh, here we go. What did you think about the ending? And what happens next for Caroline? I loved it. I loved the ending. It was just such a breath of fresh air to have things kind of work out in a weird way. And I loved how I was left with the question, is Nella alive? Or is she a ghost in Eliza's head? I don't know. I love that Caroline is now following her dreams, but I absolutely hated that she got rid of the blue vial. Like that, to me, I was like, what did you just do? I was so angry at her when she threw it over the bridge, and it was such a pivotal part of the entire story, drawing the two storylines together, and then she throws it away. This is her big break. This is your dream, like to be the historian, but wasn't in it for the fame. And that was the only part I didn't like about the ending. Everything else I like my happily ever afters, and so I got that from this.
Okay. I was just gonna say that I like that she didn't just go to a news outlet with the story, that she was gonna like use her dissertation at the university to do more research and like bring it to light that way, as opposed to just like, yeah, I'm gonna tell this news story, they write an article and then it's gone forever again. Right? Like she gets to dedicate more of her time into it, and which is ultimately what she wanted to do anyways, being like a historian. So I liked the way it ended.
What were you going to say, Ashley, about the jar?
Oh, I kind of liked that she threw the vial at the end, because I thought that it was maybe symbolic that now she was done with that story and she could start her own. She had figured it out, had her fun with it, and now it was time to begin her own story.
I like that. Jessica, what were you going to say?
Well, that's what I was going to say too, is that she was done. Like, I think it was more of a symbolic, like shutting that door, and I think she lets James go. I think that in my little perfect world, what was next for her was a divorce, going to university, going to that post-secondary and getting her master's, and I can actually see like a PhD out of it, and moving forward. And I think Little Blue Vial was that, like Ashley said, it was time to close that door, right? Because she'd made this huge decision to move to England, to pursue her post-secondary, to become her own independence. So I think she closed the door on James, she closed the door on that side of the thing, and then can move forward with her own as her own entity.
I liked the end too, all along. I do enjoy these discussions always, because it gets me thinking differently than I did before. And so, speaking of the end, I said at the beginning that I hated the part where James got sick and she was being accused of poisoning him, because it felt like too parallel to the past. That's the part that I didn't like. But now as we've picked it apart, it seems so much more necessary to the story to get Caroline where she is right now, and to get her to the point where she is going to leave him, because he's now done this terrible manipulative thing in combination with the other stuff. So I feel that now, an hour and a bit later, I like that part of the story a little bit more, because it got me to the end that I really liked. And that she was able to move on and do those things. And she was able to honor she's moving on to honor the history of those women in the ledger, which is just what Nella wanted. So I liked that part as well.
I think secrets in chapter 30, she talks a lot about secrets. One thing I wrote down was that she said, we suffer to keep secrets. And do we suffer to keep secrets for ourselves or others? And she was actually talking about James' secret, of course, but plus her own secrets, like her own secrets of who she wanted to be and who she wanted to become. And I'm wondering if that whole vial thing is just that idea of keeping secrets. She wanted to keep the vial a secret to save, I don't know, Nella or Eliza, I'm not sure, but the whole theme of secrets is pretty blatant at the end of the book. And I guess that's even made me think about my own secrets. Like, why do we keep secrets? Who are we saving?
I like that. That's got me thinking.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like you said, this could be her fame. this whole story could be her fame, but she's decided to keep some of that a secret. She won't even tell Gaynor some of it. Food for thought.
And at what expense? Like, anyone else want to make any comments about the ending? Any final thoughts before we close this book club? On anything?
I think
Sorry, go ahead.
one of my favorite lines of the book was on page 241, where she says, she's reminded of more good memories than bad, more births than murders, and more blood of life than of death. And I thought that was really nice, right? Like, that's kind of when you're looking back on your life and you're thinking, you know, was there more good or bad? Was there more moments that you know, loved than not? And I think as much as I thought Nella felt only guilt for herself, I think in that moment when she was thinking about jumping into the river, that she was okay with herself when she looked back on it, that maybe her mom wouldn't be as, you know, I don't think she ever thought her mom would be super proud of her, but that she was able to come to terms with what she had done.
Kind of made peace with her decisions.
That's mine. Yeah. I also loved the cover of the book. I thought it was beautiful. Like one of my favorite covers I have in my book collection. So.
My daughter actually said that. She said, "This looks like the best book you've ever read, Mom." She only knows because of the cover, so I thought that was kind of cool.
I thought it was really neat at the back of the book how they went over Nella Lavenger's Apothecary of Poisons and actually taught how to administer the poisons. Fatal dosage, 6 large leaves of hemlock slip. And then I like the recipes, but I don't think I would ever try a recipe in this book or from this book.
I wanted to go pick up my rat poison from the store. I know exactly how to do it. I'm really incriminating myself here. Something happens to Dean, I swear it wasn't me. And it also showed what you were talking about earlier too, about how she must have really well researched this book, because the names of poisons, and I'm not saying that those dosages are perfect, I don't know, and I won't try, but she researched it enough to know what, like, the ingredients and things that an apothecary might have used. So that's really quite amazing, I think.
Jessica and Mitch, how was your experience with your first book club?
Mine was good. I was just going to mention one thing about the book, though, that I actually kind of forgot about until we started talking about the vial. Because once she was caught, everybody started talking about the vials they had found at all the different scenes, right? They were talking about how all of a sudden the one guy was like, "Oh, I saw that near the body. Oh, it was over there, and it was the bear." And that was kind of the start too of they were starting to tie it all together. So whether or not the book would have got out or not, I think maybe would have made a difference, maybe not. But all of a sudden they started talking about all the little vials that they found in several of the different murders' homes. And just as we kind of talked about it, I like throwing the vial off the bridge, I started thinking about all the vials that when they, towards the end of the book, started talking about how they were all found. So was she going to be found out regardless?
Mm-hmm.
So So book club was awesome. This was great because it put a lot of spins on things that I was like, I know this is my opinion. And then I was like, that's not my opinion anymore. I gotta change that. That's changed. That's done. It was lovely. It was great.
Awesome. I'm so glad you were able to come. And Mitch, what did you think? How was your first ever book club?
It's lots of fun because, like, I mean, I've watched the other book clubs, but taking part in it and sharing opinions, and like Jessica just said, having your opinion changed based on hearing somebody else's opinion, like it's pretty eye-opening, and I mean, it's only learning. It's awesome.
Well, and I've found that even books that I've come into book club and I'm like, hated this book, I leave book club and I'm just like, man, that was a great book. I took so much away from it.
Well, like Danielle said, she didn't like the end with James getting poisoned, and then changed her mind that she liked how it all worked out afterwards, right? And yeah, what you're doing here, Carlin, is pretty amazing.
It's what we're doing. A book club is not a book club without the club. So thank you everyone so much for coming. I am grateful and it's a lot of fun.
I also know from experience that a book club is not a book club if there isn't someone keeping it organized, because it tends to fall apart. So yeah. If you weren't there making sure we chose a book and chose a time and holding us accountable for those pieces, we wouldn't be here either. So
well, it really is a team. After book club finishes, Ashley's on the phone and she's got like 10 snaps of our next book and makes it easy on us. So
well, thank you too, Ashley.
I'm excited because it's like I know this is gonna sound hokey, but like you only have to choose out of 4. Because sometimes choosing a book, I don't know what you guys, can be overwhelming because you want to read 600 of the dang things. You're like, okay. And you kind of have to take a step back and regroup. Okay, now what do I want to look at? So there's kind of something peaceful or kind that you don't have to sit there and try to go to the library and try to figure out or even download. Hey, you got 6,000 books to download. And then it's overwhelming. So then you just don't read anything. And then you sit on Netflix for the rest of the day. And I'm not saying that was me, but that might have been me. And so it was nice to have the book.
I feel the same way. When I don't have the book club book to read, I'm much more likely to not get started on another one. And for similar reasons, decision fatigue and overwhelm and all of those things. So I agree, Jessica. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did. In fact, I read the book so fast, my husband's like, are you done? I'm like, I'd rather not talk about it right now. Because I think I finished it in a weekend.
That's awesome. And did you have any final thoughts, Michelle, before we close this?
No, I totally enjoyed it. It's always fun to talk about books and meet new people. And yeah, I've got to think a little bit more. That's the nice thing about book club is you always go back to it now and you think a little bit more about what other people said.
Well, we are very grateful that you were able to come. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for, like you said, is it Danielle, right? Danielle? Oh, sorry, Danielle.
That's okay.
Danielle said organizing it. I mean, you have to have somebody to organize it. That's huge.
I will comment quickly that I enjoy that it's virtual. First of all, we're in 2 different cities, so we would be a lot harder for us to get together, but I've been part of book clubs before that have been hard to attend because we have family and those sorts of things, trying to figure things out. And I've been able to attend in my car in the past and those sorts of things. Yeah. So I enjoy that it's virtual, even though there's bumps. So thank you all for being part of that as well.
Thank you for hosting, you guys. This is amazing. I'm not going to lie. I told my boss, he's like, what are you doing tonight? I'm like, going to book club. And he's like, oh, so what kind of book club? And I was like, no, not today, buddy, not today.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much for coming, and I am going to stop recording now. So thank you so much. It was a wonderful book. Highly recommend, and have a great day.